Welcome back to the Strata Automation technical channel. In this video, I'm going to be covering the trending and alarming features of OCN version 3. To start, we'll start in the trend logs here. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that my devices that I care about are trending. So with first-party devices, this is really straightforward. As long as they've been brought into my server and show up here with a green check mark, that trend data is going to be available for as long as they've been in my server. For third-party devices, it's still pretty straightforward, just one extra step. Just so you have a third-party device down here. But if I click on this, there's no data available. So to make sure that data is available, I have to configure data logging on. So if I go back over to systems here, and the objects for this third-party device, I right-click on one of these points, so we'll see the relative humidity. If I right-click on that point, I have extra options here to configure data logging. So within that, I need to select whether I want to log data based on COV, change of value, or a polling interval. I want COV here. I have a COV increment that I want to record based on, as well as a max time between values, as well as a polling interval if I want to choose that option instead. So I'd set how often I want to grab this data value from this controller. Once I have that set up, COV, I can hit apply, data logging configured, and now it'll start tracking data for that point. And you can see now this is updated to start tracking data trends. So now once I go back over to the trend log section, if I expand everything here using this button, I can select the devices that I want to choose points from. So if I click this checkbox next to a device, you'll see it fills in here, and now I can see all these points from that device. I can select as many devices at a time as I'd like to see points for. So if I click all the VAVs and all the RTUs, I can see all those points. And also deselect any points I don't want to see here, so then those won't show up. But let's say I just want to look at points for this OpenStat 537. Moving over to this window here, you'll see across the top I have date ranges here, as well as time frames. So the default here is 4 hours. I want to choose a certain day or certain set of days, and click on the calendar here and scroll through the months, click whatever day I'd like. You can also jump back to today quickly. You can also select this based on time. So if I want to see the last 15 minutes worth of data, last hour, 4 hours, etc., down the line. Additionally, I have show points and live reload. So show points will display discrete data points on my chart, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, as well as live reload will add data points while you're looking at it, whereas live reload will stop displaying new data from when I've checked this box or this radio button and just look at the currently collected data, not give me any new points that might mess up the chart that I'm looking at. So let's get to looking at a chart here. Let me click a couple points here. Any points I click will start showing up in my chart. Look at the room temperature, and I can look at the relative humidity here. So you'll see, look at the past, say 4 hours worth of data for these points. I'll throw a BO on here. Look at this one here. To find that BO, I was using one of the filters here. So underneath all of my column labels here, I have a little text box that I can enter information into. So if I had a lot of controllers selected and I want to find points for a specific device, it would make the most sense to type in the device name or the device instance. Or if I want to drill down and just see MSVs, perhaps I could use the object ID field to just see MSVs. I can also clear those filters, change the ordering. So if I want to switch, if it's going high to low or low to high, so those filters are pretty handy for finding the data points that you care about. Now, once I've got all the data I want to see in my chart down here, I can go ahead and click these arrows to expand it or shrink it. This gives me just a better view of my chart. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll see all of the data points that I've clicked. So I've got a couple of analog inputs reading temperature values, and I've got a binary output I'm monitoring to see my cooling output there. You'll notice that it detected automatically that this BO2 was a digital input, and it gave it a separate split access to show on or off rather than mix it in with my temperature data. Might give me kind of a wonky looking chart that's not very helpful. So if I want to manipulate some of this data or change the colors or make the chart look different, I can click this drop down here, and it gives me a color selection for any of these points. I can also, if I don't want to choose one of the preset options here, I can choose anything from, use this slider here and click and drag things around to change the color to whatever I like. It's going to be almost black. I can click that one right there, and now it'll be black. Additionally, if I want to give anything its own axis, particularly the y-axis, on the right-hand side here, if I click this axis button, you'll see now it gives me a dedicated axis for this AI6 here, depending on the data I want to show or how I want to show it. I can also hide points temporarily. I'm going to keep them in my list here, but I just want to see what it looks like without that in there. And click this hide button, and it'll temporarily hide it for me. Split, so you'll see that on BO2 here, split button is checked. If I undo this, you'll see how it makes my graph not very helpful. But if I hit split, it gives me a dedicated graph for the BO2 and a separate one for my temperatures up here. And then for the digital input here, because it's a binary output, the digital, it kind of cleans it up, turns it into a square form, which really reflects what it looks like rather than the time in between data points here to kind of put it up. And then if I wanted to get rid of one of these, let's say I wanted to see that one, the data wasn't very interesting, I could click the trash icon and it'll delete it. As far as show points and live reload, that's what that looks like. So if I show points, it'll give me those discrete data points that I was talking about for both the binary ones as well as the analog values. And then live reload, you'll see now it jumps up and adds the most recent data points that I was missing from when I unchecked this box. Finally, I can have up to 10 points in here at a time. So and that's mainly for this export to CSV feature here. So if I were to click this, the trend.csv has exported. If I click on this, let it open, you'll see I have the export data for all these 3 points clearly labeled, and the values and timestamps for all those data points. So if I expand those out, you can see all that data that I was looking at in CSV format. Moving on to alarms. I first click on the alarm button here. I'm brought to the alarm console. This is where I can see all currently active alarms that have not been acknowledged and all previously acknowledged alarms. History takes me to previously acknowledged alarms. So if I start an active here, I can see a list of all the currently unacknowledged alarms that are still in alarm state. So I can see the severity, timestamp, device instance, so the object, description of the point or the rule, and then the rule itself, and then the current value that broke that rule. I can also jump over to the trend log here. So if I click this, you'll see it takes me to that point and shows me a time slot when the rule was broken. I can also acknowledge it and send it to the history. So see, I just acknowledged that alarm, and now it shows up here in the previously acknowledged alarms. I have these filters across the top if I want to drill down and see a specific alarm. So let's say I wanted to see only alarms from this 213007 device. Now I'm only showing alarms device. Either get rid of that like that, or change the filter criteria here. Change the list order. So all those same filters that you saw in the trend section are here. You can also acknowledge them all at once. So if I just want to clear them all out, you can acknowledge all and get rid of them, or export to CSV, and then I'll just like for the trends, it'll download a CSV format of all the alarm data. Then for history, again, the same filters across the top here, as well as who acknowledged those alarms. So you have a record of who said that this alarm has been dealt with or can be ignored now. For creating alarms, it's pretty straightforward. I hit add alarm here, give it a name, and pick my point. So let's say I want to look at AI1 from my, let's look at by instance here, 007. Look at that open stat. So let's say I want to look at this temperature sensor. And when that value is greater than 100, more than 10 minutes, that means something's wrong. Now that I hit create, that alarm will show up here in the configuration section so I can see all of the alarms that I've created. After a few seconds, you'll see the alarm state. So if a point is currently in fault when you create the alarm, it's not going to generate an alarm. It has to be first in this OK state, and then it would have to go back to fault state to trigger it. That's just one thing to note when you're creating alarms. If the alarm is in fault at the time of creation, or the point's in fault, then the alarm won't actually fire. This button here allows me to enable or disable the alarm. So if I want to temporarily remove some alarms based on the season or any current situation, I can enable or disable it. I also jump to the trend log for this point. So much like all these other trend log buttons, this will just quickly take me to the trend log for that point. I can see the past few hours, past 4 hours for that point. This update alarm button allows me to tweak the rule, so I can quickly go in here and change the rule if it's triggering too much or triggering not enough. It was actually, I need to lower the temperature, raise the temperature. I can do that as well as delete the alarm and get rid of it. For recipients, hit add recipient, and then I can go in here and do name. So if I give it technician tech@gmail.com and a phone number 3678990. Hit add a recipient. They'll show up here. So all the recipients for those alarms will show up here. Then I can choose whether or not they get SMS, email, or neither. I can also at any time go in here and change the information that I set. This trash can icon also allows me to delete that recipient. So I can go in at any time and delete those from this list here. But that is going to be all for trends and alarms. If you'd like to see how to use some of these other features over here, check out our other videos. That's going to be all for this one. Thank you for watching and have a great day.